Thank you, Vincent. I'm glad we're live, so we'll get ready going. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another council meeting for this beautiful February 8th, 2021. Again, as you know, this is winter, and it is quite cold this afternoon and for the rest of the week. If there's any issues or questions regarding safety of people that are homeless or have issues kind of finding some kind of warm accommodations, they can definitely contact our FCSS, and they can provide the assistance that they need to find a warm place for any individual that is looking for a place to stay over the next few days as this cold snap hits us. Again, members of council and members of our staff that are presenting, again, please mute your mics if you're not speaking, so that allows everybody to hear properly and there's no feedback. Again, video's off until you're speaking if you like. That helps with the bandwidth with special people that are remote. Okay. And again, my phone is beside me, so please text me when you want to speak. That way I can have keep track of the speaking order. And our recording secretary will be counting the votes and lowering hands after I call for the vote on any motion. Okay. So with that, welcome. Deputy Mayor, if we can have you make the motion, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that Town Council adopt the February 8th, 2021 regular council meeting agenda as presented.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Mr. Mayor, I can see 6 hands in favor.
Okay. Thank you very much, Recording Secretary. Moving on to number 3, which is a public input session. This is the time that we allow residents to address council on any subject that's not on the current agenda. Since this is still a virtual meeting, Town Manager, has anybody submitted anything to be read into the records?
Thank you, Your Worship. We have no submissions for public input this evening.
Okay. Thank you. Number 4 is presentations and delegations. As you can see on the agenda, there is nil, and there's also no statutory public hearings as well. Number 6, which is adoption of council minutes, the RCM of January 25th and the GMP of February 1st. Councillor Mattis, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Town Council approved the Town Council meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mattis. Members of council, you've had a chance to read through the minutes. Any errors, omissions, or questions or comments regarding those? Okay. See none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Mr. Mayor, I see 6 hands in favor.
And that is passed. Okay, moving on is number 7, council boards, commissions, and committee minutes. Item 7. Councillor Meyer, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The Town Council received the council boards and committee meeting minutes for information.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Meyer. Members of council, there are 4 minutes there, so take a browse through. I'm pretty sure you guys have read it. Any questions or comments regarding those minutes that are presented for members of council? Councillor Mattis.
Pardon, Your Worship?
Do you have any questions or comments?
No, I do not.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Meyer, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I was just reading through the cultural roundtable minutes and going to the recruitment and membership roles. I just wanted to note that the culture and tourism, the Indigenous well, both the youth connector and the Indigenous positions, but I do distinctly remember the Indigenous position being vacant when I sat briefly on the board as well. I'm just curious if there's anything that we can do to maybe fill that position. I mean, we speak about what's the word? Our land acknowledgements at the beginning of many of these meetings. And here, I think, I see this position specifically saved for a person from the Indigenous community. And so I think it would be important that we fill it. And I do appreciate there is some challenges when it comes to filling the position, but I do believe that it's an important one that we should make extra effort.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. I think the representative is Councillor Loy. I know this has been a conversation a few times. How is the recruitment process going?
Pardon me. Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I really can't comment on it. I know we had a youth member in there when I first got on the CRT, and they left. We had another person on there, and I'm not sure why that position became vacant again. If Chantel is on board here tonight, maybe she can make a further comment, because I don't know where we sit in the recruitment process at this particular point in time. I would venture to say with COVID and the lack of meetings that we've had, it's probably been quite a challenge for her to get things underway. But if Chantal is listening, can make a comment. If not, I'll check into it and get back to council.
Okay, thank you. Town manager, do we have a staff on?
Your Worship, thank you. I'll ask our General Manager of Strategic Services, Brenda Otto, if she's able to add anything further to the dialogue.
Thanks, Town Manager. To Your Worship and all of Council, you'll note on page 26 of the minutes, item 8, there's a reference to a current or just departing member of the CRT, long-serving member of the CRT, Diane Millay, who was serving for the past 6 years on the Cultural Roundtable as the Indigenous representative. So we've been very well served by Diane on the Cultural Roundtable, very active member of the Cultural Roundtable, and so certainly looking forward, and filling that position. We do want to make an extra effort to look at how we can extend our recruitment efforts beyond our traditional standard methodologies, and I'll certainly follow up with council as far as next steps for both the culture or the Indigenous position and the youth position going forward.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Meyer, anything else?
Sorry, maybe if admin could clear some confusion for me. I thought Diane sat as the resident artist position, and at times would double up as also the Indigenous representative. I was under the impression while I was on there that that we did not have that position filled then.
Okay.
Your Worship, through to Councillor yourself and Councillor Meyer, she has filled both of those roles, yes, over the number of years that she's been on the committee. So you are correct that her initial capacity was as the artist representative, and in recent years her role has shifted to representing as the Indigenous representative. So there was a transition in her role, but she has sat for the past 6 years on the committee. So certainly that is correct.
That's right. And on the minutes, there has the current artist representative is Kelly Ferlardo. Okay. Anything else, Councillor Meyer?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Let me see if anybody else has messaged me. Okay. So nobody has messaged me, so
Sorry,
I will.
Your Worship, I forgot to message. I put my hand up instead. That's my fault.
Sorry, I see 4 hands up, like they haven't gone down, so that's why I was asked. So go ahead, Deputy Mayor. I apologize.
Yep. Thank you, Your Worship. I've got a question in regards to FCSS and in regards to Meridian Housing Foundation, to do with the submission of the minutes. So I'll start with FCSS. I noticed in this package that we are getting the October 14th and November 18th minute packages finally for our review. I also noticed that they had a meeting on December 9th, and I believe they also would have had a meeting in January. I'm just wondering, my first question is why it's taking so long for these minutes to appear in council packages. The October 14th meeting, that is almost 4 months ago now. And I'm surprised it's taken that long to actually make its way to our package for review so that we can look for any questions or any concerns in there. Second question that I have in regards to FCSS, and either administration or maybe the FCSS representative can handle this, is I also notice on both of these meetings several regrets, including regrets from the same members. And I'm just wondering if the regrets and maybe some of the lower attendance on these meetings has to do with a result of the integration of FCSS into the town and away from being its own independent board. And then I'll reserve the Meridian Housing Foundation question for after this discussion.
Okay, so I can answer your first question because I've asked that question before. And it's the fact that it's because we're town council, we accept these for information. And because we have to wait until it has been fully approved by the board before it comes to us. So we're not part of the board. So if you look at the date that it was accepted on January 15th of 2021. So then once it gets approved by the board, then it comes to us. So it doesn't come as a draft form, but it comes as an approved minutes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I understand that, but we also had a regular council meeting on January 25th. So based on those dates, it would have been able to be submitted in time for the January 25th regular council meeting. And then I guess my question maybe to the FCSS representative then is why were the October 14th board meeting minutes unable to be adopted until January of 2021?
Okay. And that's good. So I'll pass those questions on to the appointee, which is Councillor Matthews.
So I just need to be clear. So basically you're asking, can you just repeat the question for me?
Yeah, so I have two questions. The first being recognizing that in this meeting, we are receiving the October 14th and November 18th minutes from FCSS, which were not approved by the board until January 15th. And we are also missing then the December 9th meeting minutes from the FCSS board. So the first question would be, why are the minutes taking so long to become approved and passed on to council as information items? And then the second question was around noticing that there were several regrets, including regrets of the same members of the board. And I'm curious as to if that is a result of the integration of FCSS into the town as a department and a potential lack of interest from members being that this is no longer an independent operating board.
Thank you, and thank you, Your Worship. With regards to the regrets, I know that for certain that one individual had conflicts, and I do not believe it had anything to do with the integration into the town of Stony Plain and any lack of interest. But I hope that our executive director is on if I'm incorrect with that. And then with regards to the October 14th, November 18th minutes, and then our meeting in January is when we approved those. I think that's an anomaly. I don't think this is typically what happens. So I don't recall seeing it taking us this long in the past, but I can definitely have that clarified for you, and I'll bring that back to get information for you.
Thank you, because it does state in the minutes of November 18th that the October 14th, 2020 board minutes were accepted as amended. Mm-hmm. So I would have anticipated that those should have been made available after that November meeting. And again, I don't see the December minutes here for the meeting that was held on December 9th, to which I would anticipate those would have been approved at the January board meeting. So I'd appreciate some follow-up on that.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor, you had a question regarding the Meridian Foundation?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, very similar question. I'm actually, maybe administration help. I see two sets of minutes from November 19th. And I'm not confident that they are the same set of minutes. So,
No, one's a org meeting and one's a regular count.
oh, that's why. Okay.
So similar to us when we
Yep.
do our October meeting.
And so then my question is similar on this, is that these minutes show that they were approved on the 26th of November 2020. And again, I'm just wondering why it seems that it's taking so long to get these minutes into our council package.
That's right. That's a good question. Maybe Councillor Bennett.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I can answer that. So it's like you explained at the beginning, Mr. Mayor. We have to wait for it to be approved by the board. I know that that they were signed on November 26th, so I'm a little confused about that too. Apparently I signed them before they went before the board. We did not have a meeting in December, and so our first meeting of the Meridian Housing Foundation would have been, I want to say January 21st, 22nd, somewhere in there. And so that's the reason that it came to this council meeting then.
Yeah. So thank you, Your Worship. And I completely understand that from Councillor Bennett. I appreciate that response. As I said, I noticed it says that they were approved on the 26th of November 2020. But I completely understand, because that's the same circumstance for the GCC minutes and the CRT minutes. They were both from October, November respectively. However, they did not have meetings till late January, so those minutes would not be able to appear till now. So I guess, Your Worship, my questions are that I'd like to see addressed in the future is that once board meetings are complete and have been approved, that those minutes are passed on to council in a timely fashion, so we are receiving them as regularly as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Your Worship, if I may, Your Worship, the other thing too that I would just make mention of to all of council is, although our meetings will be on a certain day, I think council also has to or I think generally is aware of that. I mean, the actual cutoff date for submission to our agenda process is, I mean, almost essentially a week in advance. And you know, I won't speak specifically to these ones, but by and large, if you know, even if we receive them on a Thursday, so to speak, we will hold them until the next week. You know, our essentially our agenda packages are prepared, you know, usually by Tuesday at noon. There are a couple different review checks and balances sort of thing, and then out to the public and council on Thursday. So, you know, there would be the odd time where it might lag based on that as well.
Okay, thank you, Town Manager. Okay. Nobody has messaged me that they want to speak, so I'll ask a question regarding the Meridian Foundation. On page 36, Councillor Bennett, I think there was a, let me pull it up again. Where did it go? Yes, a resolution for the Meridian Housing to purchase land at 404 Calico Road. I'm guessing that since it's written down there and it's improved, this is public knowledge. So can you provide some feedback of where the Meridian Housing Foundation is with that project?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Well, I can tell you that the Meridian Housing Foundation is waiting to make a public announcement until all of our I's are dotted and T's are crossed. So at our last board meeting on January 28th, we still had not had all of the papers from the lawyers in place. And so it would be presumptuous of me at this time to say that it's a done deal and that everything is ready to go and that we are now the proud owners. I will wait for that public announcement when our executive director has received all of the documents and they are all in place, just so there are no more snags.
Thank you, appreciate that. Okay. I see nobody has the message that they need to speak, so that ends the speaking order. And I'll call the question then. All those in favor? And again, we're accepting for information only, guys.
Mr. Mayor, there's 6 hands in favor.
Thank you very much. That's been passed. Moving on to number 8 is our bylaws. We have one that we're dealing with today is the integration of FCSS and the repeal of the old FCSS bylaws. Town Manager, go ahead with the presentation.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will be asking our General Manager of Corporate Services to speak to the bylaw changes.
Thank you, Town Manager, to Your Worship and all of Council. So you've seen this item a couple of meetings ago where there was quite a bit of discussion about integrating FCSS into the town. This agenda lead sheet in front of you tonight is really just the technical side of it. And so we're sort of asking for 3 different motions you can see within the recommendation in front of you tonight. The first one is that you do approve the integration of FCSS into the town. And then the following 2 are the repeal of the actual bylaws that currently stand. So as you remember, I think this is a little bit, you don't see it that often, but I do believe Council has seen where we do repeal bylaws. It's to be repealed in the same manner that the bylaw came into place. And that's why we do require all 3 readings on each of the 2 previous bylaws. So it equates to a lot of motions for Council to make tonight. Shall they proceed with this? But that's sort of the requirement under the MGA. And I can answer any further questions that Council may have on that. Hopefully it was straightforward, but we are here to help clarify if necessary.
Okay, thank you very much, General Manager. So moving to Council, questions of clarity on that presentation before we move on to a motion to debate. Okay, see nobody has messaged me that they want to speak and ask questions of clarity. I'll move on to, oh, I got a message from Councillor Matties. Councillor Matties, do you have a question for clarity and understanding?
Thank you, Your Worship. Can I ask a question with regards to the content of information that was provided?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So my first question is related to page 50. And I have a question regarding it. Basically, the paragraph gives an example, and it says the adoption of a poverty reduction strategy and related policies by a municipality could ensure that new bylaws take into consideration potential impacts on families with limited incomes. And I would like to know if there's an example of where in other communities that have in-house FCSS, if we've seen how the adoption of a poverty reduction strategy and related policies, how that impacted their, let's say, for example, if we were talking about offsite levy or property tax bylaw, is there an example of that we've seen elsewhere that could happen, or how that would happen?
Okay, thank you. That's a good question. To administration.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's a Town Manager. I believe I'll just ask our FCSS Executive Director to speak to that or provide any further thought or example that she may be aware of.
Thank you, Town Manager. Your Worship, through you to Councillor Matties and the rest of Council. I think there's, as you'll know from the poverty reduction draft strategy that was presented in January, there's a lot of work to be done and a lot of considerations for our specific municipality and what might work in our tri-region. Certainly one very basic example that is used in many municipalities would be a subsidized transit pass or subsidized recreation and leisure center type of passes. And those are done through through policies or bylaws at a municipal level that that enact and help to support the poverty reduction measures that the municipality has. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Matthews, anything else?
Yes, so that's, I guess, part of the answer. I would like to understand more about how the integration of these, of the policies of an FCSS would very much impact the bylaws that, we look at some of the, bigger things with regards to like an offsite levy, when we're looking at the cost of housing and things like that relate to that. So I'd like to know that in the future. Then my next question is related to page 51. And in the first paragraph, it refers to it says significant shifts that change direction of the priorities would be brought back to Stony Plain FCSS Advisory Board or Council. And so my question related to that is, I need to have some clarity as to when a significant shift in the direction of FCSS would go to the FCSS Advisory Board and when it would go to Council.
Okay, thank you. General Manager.
Your Worship, it's a town manager, and I'll make a few comments on that one, maybe in a more, in a broader sense, and then perhaps ask the general manager to add a little bit further. I think, what I believe to be the easiest way to appreciate or understand what integration would look like over time, if not sooner, would just be that, council will ultimately be the governance body and the body that sets the broad direction for FCSS and the social development, as it does on, other, call what you want, more familiar items, whether that's work in planning and infrastructure, work inside the strategic services. And the notion of that, again, comes from the municipal development plan through council strategic planning, through to formal approvals of projects and processes and whatnot in corporate planning items and business development there. So, if I can just draw the line to, how council oversees, governs queries about, the aspects that would be more familiar to council over the course of the past, 4 years or 12 years or what have you. Ultimately that would be the same role as it relates to the FCSS and social development. Typically our advisory boards are asked to provide input into potential new ideas, potential new programs, and then and we do that both administratively and sometimes by council referral. So I will stop there, and maybe that provides some broader context. Certainly, if the general manager wishes to supplement further, I would ask her to do that at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Town Manager. Your Worship, through you to Councillor Matties and the rest of Council. I think it's twofold as we move forward. So in some cases, the advisory committee, the advisory board, would come forward with ideas of their own that they're looking to, resolve community and social development challenges within Stony Plain. Other times, staff may have heard of those challenges and bring them forward for consideration by the advisory board in problem solving different solutions. I think what we're, moving forward into this new model, it brings council in to have that decision-making authority when we're making those significant shifts. So right now, working under our approved current model, our priorities are volunteerism, youth services, seniors, and then a significant focus on mental wellness, poverty reduction, healthy relationships, and inclusion. And so those are the directions that we're currently working in. If there was to be an emerging need, then we would want to have that support of both our advisory board and our councils to provide direction and leadership in establishing that as the priority focus area. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Council Matties, anything else?
Well, I guess I feel that it's just not clear in that description. It basically says significant shifts that change direction of the priorities would be brought back to the Stony Plain FCSS Advisory Board or Council should a recommended shift take place. I just don't know what that even means. So it would be nice if it was clear as to, I guess when we're looking at the role of the advisory board, which is advising, whether they bring a recommendation or whether something is being discussed in terms of an opportunity for FCSS to explore, or B, are we talking about a decision that council is making? I'm not clear based on that statement.
Okay, not too sure if administration can provide more background, but for what I see is generally the town of Stony Plain as a council, we provide the overall direction and strategic plan of the community, and within that, all the departments kind of fall in line and get us to that point. So if there is a situation where that arises that requires to be outside of that, then anything that's outside of the council's strategic plan will have to come to council for approval and allowing staff to go on to a separate direction. Town Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I think that's, again, I won't speak, directly to that particular sentence or a couple of sentences in this report. What I will comment on though is that, this is the notion that, FCSS, internally will stay within the parameters as set by council. Should those parameters need to change significantly, that would come back to council. I think what the intent here is driving at, and it's just noting, I believe, that if there's a significant shift that's required, we would be coming into the chambers, and we would also be checking with that advisory board as to consideration, thought, input, so on and so forth. I'll stop there. I'm not sure if that answers the question directly, but I'll stop there for now.
Thank you, Your Worship. That does answer it certainly better. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of clarity and understanding from the presentation and everything that was presented as part of the agenda package? Okay, I see nobody has messaged me, so I'll move on to Councillor Loy to make the motion, please.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. The Town Council approved the integration of Stony Plain Family and Community Support Services into the Town of Stony Plain corporate structure.
Okay. So administration, there is 3 points there, and I think we have to do all the bylaws separately. So we'll do number 1 first. Is that correct?
Your Worship, that is correct. That's what we would ask for.
Okay. Okay. So members of council, so this is the first, number 1 is the motion on the floor and it's to debate. If it passes, then motions for 2 and 3 are just kind of housekeeping to make sure that we're in order with our bylaws after if council decides to approve the integration or not. Okay, so with that, thank you, Councillor Loy, for that first motion. And the floor is open up to members of council for questions, comments, and debate. Councillor Bennett, I see you've messaged me, so you are first. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not, my questions don't pertain specifically to that first motion. The questions, I perhaps should have asked them during the previous clarity questions, but I'll ask them now. So for FCSS in the new structure, who sets the mission and vision statements that and their objectives, their goals? Who will be setting those vision statements? Will it be council? Will it be the department? Will it be the advisory board?
Good question. I'll move over to town manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, I'll provide some comment and perhaps the executive director would like to add further. So, I mean, I will revert back to the broader comment that, I mean, as FCSS and social development aspects come inside the town proper, corporate, whatever you want to call it, I mean, the ultimate direction will be provided by council, as it is with other matters internal to the organization. When it gets into visions and missions of FCSS itself, you know, that I would say is up for some, you know, I mean, comment further. I don't know that, you know, we've absolutely fleshed that out to this point. And I'll stop there other than to add, and I perhaps could have said this in an earlier comment, but the terms of reference for the advisory committee will also be or are in or will be developed, and that will be in front of council at some point in the future too for input, approval, and comment. So, Your Worship, that's the broader answer. Internal departments to the town of Stony Plain do have various forms of their own, you know, business statements or vision statements or whatever, but they are essentially subservient to the broader vision mission of council.
Okay, thank you. Does the general manager want to provide any comments?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Bennett and the rest of council. I would agree with what the town manager says. Those have been some of the discussions we've had at an FCSS board level at this point, and certainly with the executive committee, that overall direction setting will come from council moving forward, and that the advice and guidance that would come through an advisory board would be considered by council. And so those would be some of the phrasings that we put together as we worked on the terms of reference and as we work to support existing board members to transition into advisory committee members.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also was wondering about when I was part of FCSS, when I was on the board, even before I was on council, we had strategic planning sessions. And in those sessions, that's where the mission, the vision, our goals were all conceived. And I honestly felt like those came directly from our public, because all of us at that time, of course, there was one council representative then, as there is now, but all of that came from our public members. And I could really see the benefit of having our actual community members who are out there, you know, talking to neighbors and living life here in Stony Plain. Not that we counselors aren't, but I was always very proud of the fact that those visions and mission statements came through the strategic planning session into the actual work of SCSS. So I'm a little disappointed to hear that that might not be happening again. Perhaps I need further clarification on that. But my second question, Mr. Mayor, has to do with Parkland's contribution. And I know it said in one of the agenda items, one of the amendments, it did mention that contribution, but it's not bold enough, in my opinion. If it becomes a part of a town department, will it still be negotiated, the contribution that Parkland County makes? A great deal of the mandate of FCSS, I believe, was focused on providing residents of Parkland County with certain services. And it was highlighted because Parkland County wanted it known that their residents could access these programs and services. So, Mr. Mayor, I really request some clarification, some guarantees that Parkland County will still contribute and will still be part of receiving the services that that FCSS offers.
Okay, thank you. I just want to just add some comment to your first question regarding the mission and statements of FCSS and the direction of that. Even though council sets the overall direction, similar to each department in the town of Stony Plain, each department also has their own mission and vision statement that the town council does not develop. We set the overall vision and direction, but each department sets their own mission and vision statements to how to meet that. So I believe that FCSS will be doing that as well, as you mentioned, the strategic planning to how best to meet the needs of our community through the vision of Stony Plain FCSS. I think Parkland County contributions will not be affected. As we know, many municipalities do not have a governance board. They have an advisory board, if they have a board at all. And there has been many partnerships that continue to operate without having a board there. And next door to us, City of Spruce Grove has not had a board for many years, and that partnership with the Parkland FCSS and Spruce Grove FCSS has been going on for many years, and they continue to offer services to Parkland residents, and there is not an issue. I do not see an issue unless the general manager or the town manager sees an issue of funding because we changed governance models.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I can again comment a little bit on that. I'll stop short of guaranteeing that when our partners at Parkland County will continue to fund at the amounts they have or what have you. I will say that Parkland has been a contributing partner for a number of years, and I don't expect that anything would change significantly in that manner as a result of this particular change. Parkland County will make decisions that they feel are in the best interest of their residents, and they will do that as they see fit. Just to be clear, the arrangement that Parkland County has is with the town of Stony Plain. It's not with Stony Plain FCSS. The actual contractual arrangements are between the town and the county. Over the years, we've tended to not get directly involved unless we felt there was a need to, and those discussions and were commonly held by staff at Parkland County and our executive director of FCSS. So I don't anticipate that would change as a result of this proposal. I don't know that I would say it would change with or without the proposal, but certainly we'll stop short of a guarantee on that particular one. At that point, Your Worship, I'll just ask if our executive director of FCSS wishes to add anything further to that question.
Thank you, Town Manager, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Bennett and the rest of Council. I agree with what the Town Manager has said. The conversations that I've had with my counterparts at Parkland County, they were in fact somewhat surprised at the model we were currently operating under. I think they had understood that we were following the same model as other municipalities. This will bring us in line with the rest of the municipalities that Parkland County provides direct funding to, where their FCSS program is integrated within the municipal corporate structure. So I don't anticipate, as the town manager said, any changes as a result of this agreement. Funding changes down the road that may come through Parkland County, I think, are up for a different discussion, and they would be based on how they identify their social development needs moving forward.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bennett, is that all your questions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it is. I feel reassured now about the Parkland contribution. But Mr. Mayor, just to go back to my other point, the point I was trying to make is that the strategic planning, the vision, mission statements, my point was that they came from our actual community. And that was an important part for me. I know that our department heads and the departments do undertake those kinds of processes. So I'm happy to see that we still have an advisory board, and I just want to emphasize the benefit of having an advisory board, and hopefully they will still be able to do some strategic planning and their suggestions will come forward to council and be given the weight that they deserve. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bennett. Moving on to the next on the list is Councillor Matties. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is with regards to the budget on page 51 of 103. It refers to there's a potential for increased flexibility of budget dollars. It says this flexibility comes into play with respect to the town of Stony Plains over contribution to things that are related to community and social development, but do not necessarily need to be recorded or tracked as preventative under the FCSS provincial funding regulations. So currently, under the current structure, all dollars utilized by FCSS are used for preventative social services. So under this revised model, we're looking at approximately 20% of all funding could then be used for non-preventative social services. For example, we've recently, and this was very important during COVID, was there was funds allocated for grocery gift cards for members of our community that were in need. Now, my concern is that where is the guidance in this in terms of how the dollars that the town of Stony Plain are contributing? And that goes back to what Councillor Bennett just talked about in terms of it comes from the community as to the direction, and I'm confused as to this flexibility, because that's quite a lot of money that we all of a sudden are flexible on.
All right, good question. Town manager?
Your Worship, I'll ask our executive director to speak to this specifically.
Thank you, town manager. Your Worship, through you to Councillor Matties and the rest of council. I think we're speaking about what needs to be reported through the rather complex FCSS provincial reporting system. So under the current model, where there's a bylaw that allocates funds to FCSS, everything has to be reported through that model. The flexible approach would be things that wouldn't necessarily need to be reported under the very strict FCSS reporting guidelines, but could be used to address community and social priorities. So I would foresee that as we integrate within the town and we become part of the corporate planning process, that those flexibilities are flexible because they've been approved through the corporate planning process. And so council, following the guidance that the advisory committee would have taken, would have the ability to approve those different elements. So it's not money that's intended to be spent in ways that don't support community and social development. It's certainly intended to be to continue to use those funds to move forward with our initiatives and build those priority action areas that we've got underway. It's really a shift in terms of recording or tracking under those FCSS requirements, like the provincial outcomes and financial models.
Thank you. Councillor Mandes?
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay. Moving on, I have Deputy Mayor next.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is regarding funding. It's a little bit different, though, than the previous questions from the other members of council. It relates to the 80-20 split in the agreement that we have with the province. You know, we've known for years, and we've been able to demonstrate for years the significant, what I would call underfunding from the province for our preventative social services through FCSS. And we've used this information heavily, you know, in talking with ministers, in AUMA, supporting resolutions, etc. With FCSS becoming a integral department within the town, are we still going to be able to have the same level of, I guess, a detailed analysis of the FCSS costs? You know, I know in our budget we definitely do separate things out a little bit more when it comes to the different departments and that, but you know, FCSS has historically not being within the town's confines. It's been very, very clear, and it's been very easy to ensure that all expenses are being captured. And I know that was even highlighted more when FCSS moved out of the town office and into its own building. So I'm just wondering, are those same type of things going to be taken into consideration when we are using this reporting for the 80-20 funding split from the province, so that we can continue to advocate for better funding for preventative social services in the community, and how that's going to be done?
That's good. Good question. Town Manager?
Yes, and thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor, and to the rest of the council. So you raise a good point. I mean, as is now, you know, I mean, so to speak, there's a fairly clear line to the overall costs or overall expenditure that the town of Stony Plain puts into FCSS. As an internal function area, I mean, those costs will still be fairly clear. You know, you might see, I would expect there to be a little more soft cost, untracked time. Maybe that would be, you know, a little tougher to identify specifically. But we also are able to, you know, internally through our records and, you know, financial records to pull things pretty fast on any given function area. So, you know, I'm confident that we'd be able to maintain a pretty clear line of sight to the, I mean, overall cost, both for internal reasons, but also for the reasons the Deputy Mayor has put forward in dialogue or advocacy with the government of Alberta.
So if I can follow up on that a little, Your Worship.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. One of the key things that's been highlighted in this report, and I do actually think it is a great benefit and great advantage, is it's ensuring that FCSS will be considered in various, the social impacts will be considered amongst all different aspects of planning throughout the community and throughout all different departments. So there's going to be a significant level of integration there. So at that point in time, I guess the question is the work FCSS work, or is the work a work of a different department, and how does that get classified? And I want to make sure that we're capturing that, because I think what we're looking to accomplish here is actually increasing the amount of work that that FCSS does, or the amount of social considerations and amount of what would typically fall under the FCSS mandate is occurring within the town's confines. And again, I think it's an incredibly positive step, but that comes with a higher cost to it. And you know, when those lines start to get blended, I want to make sure we're not losing those costs. And it's everything down to even communications and any work that communications does, and making sure that that gets, you know, brought in under it, and you know, all the way down to even just the caretaking contracts for the actual office space and those type of things. So I really want to make sure that we go forward to continue to make that strong case to the provincial government that the funding model is not equitable at this point in time, that their commitment of an 80-20 split for preventative social services is not being fulfilled. And I want to make sure that if we are actually increasing the presence of FCSS in the town of Stony Plain and increasing their involvement in all of our initiatives well-rounded, that again, the cost of doing that is recognized when we make those pleas to the provincial government.
Good, thank you for your comments, Deputy Mayor. And looking at my phone, I have Councillor Matties with Q3. Councillor Matties?
I'm sorry, that probably should have been Q2. Thank you, sorry.
Okay, no problem. We got that taken care of then. Okay, any more members of council have any comments? No. Okay, I'll be supporting the motion. I think this is a good step for the town of Stony Plain. I especially like the fact that, as mentioned through the report and through the previous presentation, that the FCSS, the social services side of our community, will be kind of more entrenched in our overall operations, which will make us more I don't know, encompassing and more focused on the human aspects of our communities and not just the dollars and cents of the roads and sewers and waters and stuff that typically municipalities have to look forward to. I do take to heart the caution that Deputy Mayor mentioned about making sure that we are fairly clear in what we're recording so that we do have the numbers and the stats to back up our advocacy role as we continue to meet with the provincial government. We acknowledge that the 80-20 split that they're recommending does do wonders for our community, but it is not enough to do what they want us to do to help make sure that all the residents in the town of Stony Plain and our surrounding communities are looked after. Okay. So again, thank you very much, administration, for bringing this forward, and thank you to our SSS Executive Director and the board that has currently come in and recommended this forward to the town of Stony Plain. So, member for council, we have Councillor Lloyd made that motion, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please raise.
Mr. Mayor, I can see 6 hands in favor.
Okay. Thank you, Recurring Secretary. So that is passed. And then, as mentioned earlier, motions for number 2 and number 3 are kind of housekeeping that we need to complete those, as mentioned earlier by our General Manager of Corporate Services, is that so that the bylaw is in place similar to how the bylaw was in place before. So we have to reverse the bylaws now to accept the new bylaws. Where we are right now, let us go to Councillor Bennett, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Town Council give first reading to bylaw 2643/G/21, a bylaw to repeal bylaw 1191/G/95.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bennett. Members of council, any questions and comments regarding first reading? Seeing that nothing has come in, I'm going to call the question. All in favor?
Mr. Mayor, I can see 6 hands in favor.
Okay. Thank you very much. Move on to second reading. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that Town Council give second reading to bylaw 2643/G/21.
Thank you very much. Members of council, any comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Mr. Mayor, I can see 6 hands in favor.
Okay. Thank you. And for members of staff and residents that are watching, or anybody else that is participating, watching through our YouTube channel, if a council is to deal with all three bylaws readings in one evening or one sitting, unanimous consent has to be given. So that is the next motion. Councillor Meyer, please.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. The Town Council give unanimous consent to third reading of bylaw 2643/G/21.
Thank you. I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Mr. Mayor, I can see 6 hands in favor.
Thank you. And Councillor Matties for third reading, please.
The Town Council give third reading to bylaw 2643/G/21.
Thank you very much, Councillor Matties. Members of Council, any questions? See that nothing has come in. I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Mr. Mayor, that's 6 hands in favor.
Okay. Thank you. Members of Council, we'll move to number 3, which is then another bylaw to repeal an older FCSS bylaw. Again, this is part of the process. Where are we now? Councillor Lloyd, please.
Yes, Your Worship. The Town Council give first reading to bylaw 2644/G/21, a bylaw to repeal bylaw 2416/G/11.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lloyd. Members of Council, any questions or comments regarding that? Okay, see nothing has come in. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor?
Mr. Mayor, I can see 6 hands in favor.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to second reading, and we'll go to Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the Town Council give second reading to bylaw 2644/G/21.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Members of Council, any questions or comments? See nothing. I will call the question. All those in favor?
Mr. Mayor, that's 6 hands in favor.
Thank you very much. And to everyone that's watching on YouTube and in the future, again, if a council does all 3 readings, we need unanimous consent from members of council that are participating in the meeting. So Councillor Matties for unanimous consent, please.
The Town Council give unanimous consent to consider third reading of bylaw 2644/G/21.
Thank you very much, Councillor Matties. I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Mr. Mayor, that's 6 hands in favor.
Thank you. Let's pass. Moving on to third reading. Councillor Bennett, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make a comment. Should I make it now or before I read this?
Why don't you make the motion and then you can make a comment.
Okay, thank you. I move that Town Council give third reading to bylaw 2644/G/21.
Go ahead with comments or questions. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say that I am fully in favor of this change, with FCSS becoming more of an integral part of our town departments. I think it's a benefit to everyone, and I can see FCSS carrying on and doing a great job with the support of all the other departments of our town. But I would like to thank the members of the FCSS management board that has been running for so many years. Mr. Mayor, I think that they have done an incredible job of maintaining and being part of the social development of the town of Stony Plain. And I have every confidence that an advisory board will be able to contribute just as much. So, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say my thanks and to give my support for this motion.
Okay. Thank you for your comments, Councillor Bennett. And I do echo your similar comments. I did had a little stint of time on the FSS board as well, and it was very, very rewarding to see the work and the kind of the effects that we're having on the communities through the social services side of community and making sure that we are inclusive as a community. Members of council, any other questions, comments? Okay, see none, I will call the question. All those in favor?
Mr. Mayor, I see 6 hands in favor.
Thank you very much for that. I think I was on mute, so that was kind of funny, actually. Okay, let's call a quick recess and let's come back in about 8 to 10 minutes. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and back to our council agenda under to number 9, which is business items, is the council corporate identity policy repeal. Town manager, go ahead with presentation.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will ask our General Manager of Strategic Services to open this up. I believe we have our communications officer with us this evening as well. So I'll just pass it over to our General Manager.
Thank you, Town Manager, and good evening, Mayor and Council. As part of our ongoing efforts to revise and update our policies to ensure they're in line with our current standards and practices, the corporate identity policy was flagged for review and updating for administration. And so I'll just ask our corporate services or corporate communications officer, Stephanie Barsby-Boisvert, to just speak to the repeal and the rationale for it.
Thank you, General Manager. Through your worship to the rest of council, before you is a recommendation to repeal the council corporate identity policy 230-0509 SP. Administration is recommending the repeal as it will then be updated and replaced in as an administrative policy and procedure. After review, administration found the current policy to be outdated and not in line with current town practices. With council's approval, administration will move forward with creating an administrative corporate identity policy and procedure. The continued purpose of the policy is to govern the day-to-day use of the town logo and seal in terms of digital and printed materials, such as letterheads, business cards, etc. No updates to the existing logo and seal are proposed at this time. Any further changes to the logo or seal would be brought before council for adoption. This recommendation is in line with practices in many other municipalities within the province. I welcome any questions at this time.
Thank you very much to the General Manager and the Manager of Corporate Services. Members of Council, any questions or comments regarding that presentation? Actually, Councillor Lloyd just messaged me, said that he could not hear very well. Was there a problem with the audio?
Hi, Your Worship, it's Town Manager. I don't know that there was a problem with the audio. It was maybe a little light on my end, but I don't think it was a technical problem.
Okay. And I'll just ask Councillor Lloyd, did he manage to hear most of the presentation?
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, I would say no, I did not get much of the presentation at all, and nothing changed in my end. All the volumes on the iPad were the same. I just think maybe Stephanie's was maybe down a little low. It was very brief. I'm wondering if she could adjust the volume, and if the rest of council doesn't mind, if she could just go over it again, it would be appreciated.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Lloyd. Town Manager, is that all right?
Yeah, Your Worship, certainly you can just ask our corporate communications officer to maybe speak up a little bit and just give it another go.
Absolutely. Through your worship to the rest of council, before you is a recommendation to repeal the council corporate identity policy 230-0509 SP. Administration is recommending the repeal as it will then be updated and replaced as an administrative policy and procedure. After review, administration found the current policy to be outdated and not in line with current town practices. With council's approval, administration will move forward with creating an administrative corporate identity policy and procedure. The continued purpose of the policy is to govern the everyday use of the town logo and seal in terms of digital and printed materials such as letterhead, business cards, etc. No updates to the existing logo and seal are proposed at this time. Any further changes to the logo or seal will be brought before council for adoption. This recommendation is in line with practices in many other municipalities within the province. I welcome any questions at this time.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lloyd, is that, were you able to catch some of that?
Yes, Your Worship, I did send you 2 thumbs up by the thing, and thank you, Stephanie. You came in loud and clear.
Absolutely. Anything for you, Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now move on to questions. Councillor Meyer, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm just curious about the second sentence there in the second paragraph. Current policy is outdated and does not align with current town applications. I was wondering if admin could expand on that and kind of just give me an idea, you know, maybe a real world example of what the issue is.
Thank you.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Meyer, I'll just make an initial comment and ask Stephanie if she would fill in any additional. In terms of the outdated aspect of it, the policy that is currently in effect was drafted and approved by Council in 2009. And so the policy has been in existence for a number of years now. And so it has become outdated in terms of our policy standards and practices. So it did need to be reviewed and updated within the current standards of our policy process. So I'll just ask the communications officer if she had any further comments to that.
Yes, absolutely, General Manager. I think a couple of reasons here why we decided to update this policy. One is the old policy wasn't really in line with our legislative standards. In 2009, Legislative Services went through all of the policies and they flagged the ones that didn't meet really the criteria for being a council policy, and this was one of those policies. So, for example, you as council would have a say in what the logo looks like. So if we were to ever change the logo, we would certainly bring that back to council. But as a council, you don't need to have a say in whether or not we left align the logo on letterhead or if we right align the logo on letterhead. That is an administrative decision, and those are decisions that we make on a daily basis, and we would not bring those to council. So that is the reason for updating this policy.
Okay, thank you very much. And Councillor Meyer, there's also a very let me just find that for you. On the same page. Sorry, I lost my page or somewhere. That's how it goes. With virtual, going back and forth. Page 82 for members of council to kind of review, as this policy was approved back in 2009. If you look at the Stony Plain Public Library, is a perfect example. As we've seen and heard updates from Councillor Bennett about the changing brand of Stony Plain Public Library and what they're doing now, that logo is nothing close to what the current logo is of the Stony Plain Public Library. So again, these things are administrative and not governance related. Council doesn't need to approve what the logo looks like. That's definitely for our staff to take care of, and that's why the policy is being repealed. Councillor Meyer, does that make sense to you?
I don't want to like get into it, but well, but I will.
Yeah.
So I'm reading the old one, and it says 7.3: responsibility for control of the management for independent program rests with each individual department head. An independent identity program has been extended to the town Stony Plain Public Library, the golf course. Okay, so in my estimation, the independent programs already had that ability in this current bylaw. But I do appreciate the admin's comments as I've recently been dealing with left align or right align or center hash or whatever for the library's name tags. So I can appreciate council not needing to be down in the nitty gritty there. I'm just curious why this, I think I can live with the response that I got there. I can appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you. Members council, any other questions? Okay, I have a question since nobody else has messaged in. Maybe administration can provide some feedback. We've done a few of these already because, you know, as you've mentioned, that is good practice for us to go through and update policies and change bylaws and such that don't need to be there anymore and to update them. As mentioned here, that it'll be brought back as a kind of a a policy, like an administrative policy. So, and some of the other ones that we have dealt with, we've seen this, and then we've also seen the administrative policy to replace this. It was mentioned that staff will be doing that, administrative staff will be doing that. So why hasn't this been done to bring to us at the same time?
Your Worship, to respond to your question, the administrative policies are approved by the town manager. Council policies are approved through council. So in order to proceed with approval by the town manager of the administrative policy, we need council's approval to repeal the current council policy. I hope that answers your question clearly enough.
Yes, it does. But wouldn't it not be more beneficial to members of council to see what that policy that the town manager will be putting in to replace this one?
As I said, Your Worship, the intent is to bring the policy to the administrative level through the approval of the town manager. So with that, there is no intent to circulate or seek approval from council for the identity policy. It is to bring that policy into the governance of the town manager.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Matties, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm asking this question because I know there's a discernible difference between bylaw and policy, and that policy provides direction to staff. But my question is what is the accountability of the council to determine what the logo and the seal is? I'm in terms of the overall image of this community, is that not a council responsibility as opposed to the administration putting the details in place and managing it? And is there, and I hate to add another red tape issue, but would there not be a bylaw and would there not be a policy that's administrative? So if you could clarify, please.
Okay. So I think the biggest question here was the concern regarding the town logo and seal. Is that going to be still council's prerogative and purview to approve, or is that all within the general manager?
Your Worship, through to you and Councillor Matties and all of council, it is our intent to ensure that council has approval of both the town logo and the seal. That approval will not change with the administrative policy. And to ensure that goes forward will be as a part of the administrative policy. So there's no intent to change council's role in their authority and guidance of the town logo and seal.
And with this, if this passes and then the policy is administrative policy, how does council approach, or what are the steps if council deems it necessary to change the corporate seal and change the logo?
Your Worship, can you just clarify the question? Maybe just repeat the question so I understand clearly what you're seeking.
Okay, I see that, with this being changed and it's the intent of the administrative policy to continue to allow council to have approval over a new seal or new town logo. How do we, if council wants to change that, how do we change that? How do we initiate a process if we wanted to change the logo?
Your Worship, through to you and all of council, if council is seeking to direct administration to review and update those, that can be done through a motion of council, or through to the town manager or through to administration, if that is the direction of council. Perhaps the town manager would like to add any further comment to that if he sees anything additionally or different to that.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess my commentary there would be, any sort of movement on a logo is typically, follows, some sort of strategic process related to branding or theming of the either the corporation or the community as a whole. So along those lines, typically a community of our size and scope, that process would be identified through some aspect of strategic planning. Impacts and understandings would be brought forward into the chambers, and even all that side of a process, and then from there would be engagement with the community to an extent, or professional marketing and so on. So I guess what I say is the logo itself is typically an extension of a higher level identified brand, which this one is certainly. So that process would typically be kickstarted through some form of strategic planning.
Thank you much. Councillor Matties?
Thank you, Worship. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Councillor Lloyd, please.
Yes, thank you, Worship. And this is just a bit of an aside to this policy that we're talking about tonight. In past council meetings, we have been dealing with bylaws. And in our bylaws there, we've put in a specific date where we will review it again. And I think traditionally it's been 4 years, or the last several been 4 years. I recognize the difference between a bylaw and a policy. But I'm just wondering, this was done last in 2009. Are we looking at, and I don't remember in this particular policy, another timestamp where we'll say, okay, in 4 years or 6 years or 7 years, that this automatically gets flagged like all our policies, and so we can take a look at it? That's a comment and a question, pardon me, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. And I'm not too sure what the administrative review timeframe is, but I would guess that that's what they would be doing. Town Manager?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So again, just to be clear, the bulk of everything that's in front of council in this particular policy format would be transferred to an administrative policy procedure. And you're correct, Your Worship. We do have our own timing for reviews that are set when those are adopted or approved, so to speak, internally. Specifically when my position signs off on them, they have similar timing reviews built into them that are tracked by our legislative services team now to ensure that timely review.
Further to that, Your Worship, Town Manager, would you have an approximate time frame? Like I gave out 3 numbers, I think 4 years, 6 years, a 7-year. What would be considered acceptable that we would put these policies for a quick review? And that's probably even with the senior leadership team to see that's good, leave it, or no, we got to take a look at it. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to Councillor Lloyd and the rest of council. I believe this, and our typical standard is 4 years. That's what's built into the administrative procedures. So that would be the maximum that it would go until it would be flagged by our legislative services team for its standard review period. Your Worship, though, I would add a little bit further that on the administrative procedure reviews, frankly, they tend to happen more often, simply for ease of use and ease of change. Often, as council's seen over probably the last 4 months, you're seeing a number of fairly stale, dated council policies. One of the ease of use once they become administrative procedures is that they're simply put, they're much easier to make minor amendments to, or minor changes. So they tend to be updated, I would say more often, whether it's little tweaks or major changes, but they tend to be updated more often than the 4 years. But that would be the longest they would go.
Okay, thank you. All right, looking back, any other members of council have any questions or comments regarding the presentation? Okay, seeing none, Deputy Mayor, I'll ask you to make the motion, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that Town Council repeal Corporate Identity Policy 230/05/09/SP.
Okay, thank you very much. Members of council, any questions, comments, and debate on the motion? Okay, see none. Just want to thank administration for bringing this forward. Again, part of being a good organization is to review policies and bylaws that we have on a regular basis and bring them back for changes and removal. Looking at the old policy, back on page 85, you can see how detailed it is for in terms of what size fonts business cards there should be and where they should be aligned and etc. That's definitely not a function of governance and council, so I'm glad that this is being addressed so that council can focus on the strategic plan and the governance role that we have in our organization versus the administrative staff role. And I'm glad to leave that to our more than capable town manager and the general manager that we do have. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Mr. Mayor, I can see 6 hands in favor.
Thank you. And as passed, I'm moving on to council information items and council discussion. I know we had a council G&P last week, so we had some questions there. So let's see if there's any more questions or comments from members of council. Let's start off with Councillor Mattis, please.
I just have a comment that I forgot to mention at the last council meeting. This was through FCSS, and I think it's under their family wellness activities. We had, they meet I think it's every Thursday at 3:30 in the afternoon. It's community connections where members of the community get together and just have a conversation about a specific question. And on that date, we talked about what makes a community healthy. And there were so many great ideas that came from the community, whether that's, good jobs, good neighbors, friendly family events. But we talked about neighborhood programs like the Communities in Bloom we had in the past, or community gardens. We talked about the Christmas tree light up that, actually, I actually brought that up because I'd watched about 15 Christmas movies, and every Christmas movie, a member of the community was with the mayor to, a selected member of the community to light the Christmas tree. And so just, getting more community involvement in things like that. We talked about also getting sports groups and community groups more involved by asking them, thinking of things that we can do to bring the community members together. And I think Deputy Mayor Laurie had recommended that. It was myself and Deputy Mayor Laurie and Councillor Meyer that joined in with this group. And just some really great ideas. So I guess my question is, how do we now, really reach out to members of our community to get good ideas? And certainly this is, one through the FCSS, but are there other things that we can be doing as a community, as a town, to really bring out the people in our community? So just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's good comments, and definitely for us to continue to move forward to build the community, we need more people involved. So awesome comments. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just 2 items for this evening. I was contacted by a resident who pointed out while attempting to cross the street on Main Street around our roundabout, the tall grass. Now I haven't checked if there is tall grass there or not, but anyhow, I know we do have it at some of those intersections. Prevented her from being able to make eye contact with with the drivers. And so I thought I'd just bring it up to administration, make them aware of it, and get them thinking about whether if that's a safety concern or not. And then just a second one, which I meant to raise prior, but it's still an issue. We do not seem to get a lot of public input in our council meetings, and I appreciate COVID certainly has cut down the amount of groups out there that are active, but it is an important role of council, and I would hope that we take extra steps to try and get whichever or any public to participate in these meetings.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Yes.
Your
Commissioner Smith,
worship.
about the roundabouts.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Your Worship, and through to the rest of council. You know, I understand certainly the concern that was brought forward to Councillor Meyer. You know, we do have different plantings in those areas, and appreciate that being brought forward, because as we get used to, you know, ourselves as the governing body, so to speak, just like everybody else has to get used to some of the changes there. We will keep an eye on that or observe that, I think both officially and certainly when I would say unofficially myself, or I'm sure other staff members when we use that intersection. And you know, I like to believe, Your Worship, that when it comes to anything, you know, we do our best to plan and design and so on, but we also need to be aware that some things can cause a challenge in reality when they get built. So I think there's some lessons to learn there, and certainly would encourage more if those are concerns to be brought forward or notified to administration. Your Worship, I would appreciate the opportunity to comment a little bit further on the public input side. So, you know, Your Worship, I have not, you know, tracked the records myself, so to speak, but I think we have noticed the public input session. So I'm speaking to the public input and not the delegation portion specifically. We did tend to get a few more public input when we were doing the physical in-person meetings. I'm not sure if the inherent virtual format is causing less people to reach out to us or ask or inquire. If that's cause for a bit of a change there or not. What I would note too, though, is that we do get inquiries for public input, or we get, you know, Your Worship, emails or phone calls that, you know, say, I'd like to speak to council about such and such. And often, you know, we try to resolve, if it's a concern, we try to resolve that in a manner that doesn't necessarily require someone appearing before council in the public input session. And frankly, often that's the case. We're able to, you know, follow up on the inquiry, the concern, so on and so forth. And I know that I have seen a few of those over the course of, I would say, the last 4 months. Inquiries that came in, but were redirected and ultimately solved to the satisfaction of the individual. So I'll I guess put that comment to council. And I think I'll stop there at this point, Your Worship. Just maybe a bit of background.
Thank you. And in terms of presentations from delegations, that's still arranged, and with every group that is currently dealing with COVID, the ability to present is not always front and center for a lot of these groups. Moving on to Councillor Bennett, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had written down a question that I wanted to ask about where our vulnerable Stony Plain residents can go to warm up in this cold weather. And then when I checked my email, the town manager has already answer that question for me. So apparently he read my mind. That's scary. But still, Mr. Mayor, I'm wondering, before I got that email, I truly didn't know. You opened up this meeting by saying for people to call FCSS, but I want all of our residents to know, because they're the people who are out and about and seeing this, that if they see someone in trouble, that to contact FCSS or and I guess that's the only recourse that we have at this point, since the library is in the middle of a move and the other locations are not available due to COVID. So I'm just wondering if we can have a corporate communication sent out to just remind people that, to be on the lookout. If you see someone who looks like they've been, on the rough and being outside a lot, that this is the procedure and this is what they themselves can do to help someone else. So I guess what I'm asking for, Mr. Mayor, is a corporate communication to go out just to let everyone know what to do.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, and also our residents can also call our community peace officers and the RCMP if they notice somebody that is in need. Those agencies will come and assist them as well, and they'll get them to the proper areas, so they don't have to always just call FCSS if they don't know who to call. So those people are as well. And also, because of COVID, the Westview Health Center is the only location that is open. So if any members are listening and participating in today's meeting, they can direct them to the Westview Health Center as well. And from there, the staff at the health center will get those residents and people to the places where they need to be taken care of.
Right. We need eyes on our community, Mr. Mayor. And then the other thing I was just going to mention is how excited I am to get started next week on the FCSS Community Connect contest. I have downloaded the game sheet, and I'm thinking of scenarios where I can connect with different people and check it off in order to complete that contest. I think that's a great initiative, and I'd encourage all of our community to download that card and be ready to connect with your neighbors.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. That sounds like like a bingo game, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Thank you for that, Councillor Bennett. Now moving on to Councillor Loy.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And nothing really. I think I'm like everybody else, just really enjoying this cold weather. It's really slowed things down. I do still get out and about quite frequently, but I really notice a big decrease in the amount of people who are certainly walking, and even the vehicle traffic in about town and here between Spruce Grove. So, but I keep a constant eye on the weather, and they say by June it should be quite nice.
By June, I think your prediction is pretty safe there, Councillor Loy.
Thank you. Good to hear everybody. It's there's always great opinions and comments that are coming here. Miss Harold today, but those things happen. So, and we'll talk to everybody after this meeting.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. And yeah, I just wanted to echo in response to the weather that we've had and the vulnerable population that we have within the community. We know that the city of Spruce Grove has a community homeless winter emergency response, and I do know that we are a little bit tied into that through our peace officers and the RCMP, and they have the late night cafe operating in Spruce Grove. And so I would like to see us participate a little bit more in that. And again, I think getting that message out there to the general public through our communications is a great tool that we certainly need to utilize, because somebody driving down the road who sees a vulnerable citizen or vulnerable resident may not necessarily know what's available for them and who to contact and how to get some help to that person. So certainly would like to see a little bit more going on to that, as you know, we are a community that is reaching towards 20,000 residents. We're not just a small town anymore, and so we do have these issues, we do have these challenges, and we need to find proper solutions in order to help ensure that everybody is protected. So appreciate that being brought up. Appreciate the town manager's responses on that previously, and look forward to some continued dialogue on it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And as for me, just make sure everyone is aware, there has been some regulations that have been eased off by the provincial government. As always, please check the alberta.ca website to see which phase we're in and what we're allowed to do in terms of gatherings and not gatherings, and to make sure that we continue to bend the curve down so we can get back to some sense of normalcy here in a short time. And just an FYI, maybe to our members of council and maybe to residents, for the last couple months, Councillor Roth has been walking the streets of Spruce Grove just for something to do for exercise, mental health, and he has now completed walking all the streets of the city of Spruce Grove, and I have given him the map of the town of Stony Plain. So when it warms up, Councillor Roth will be coming to town of Stony Plain and just walking the trails and the streets just to say hi, just for him to do, and that's his way of dealing with some of the isolation, and I will be joining him. So if we'll be spaced apart and walking around, so if you guys would like to join us for a walk, let us know and we'll connect so that we can socially distance and make sure that we're taking all precautions when we kind of do a little bit of walking in our community for some mental health and some for physical exercise. Okay. Thank you very much, members of council. Thank you for reading your agenda packages and bringing your wealth of knowledge and questions to the conversation. Members of administration, thank you much for getting the agenda ready for us. And with that, the council meeting is adjourned.